At 87 years old, I've come to see that many men spend their lives building a prison they mistake for success, duty, and responsibility. We call providing being strong, being dependable, but often becomes a high-pressure cage that quietly steals our health, our joy, and eventually our spirit. I lived in that cage for nearly 6 decades. I was a man who never slept, who answered every call, who believed the weight on his shoulders proved his worth. I stayed in a constant state of urgency until my body finally began to give in. Yet today, at 87, I feel more centered and alive than I did in my frantic 50s because I made deep changes that gave me my life back before it was too late. For most of my life, I treated stress like a badge of honor. I wore exhaustion like a medal and believed that if I wasn't under pressure, I wasn't working hard enough or being man enough. Looking back now, after seeing many of my peers who didn't make it this far, I understand something different. A man who is always in a hurry is a man missing his own life. I spent decades running toward a finish line that never existed. The first and hardest change I made was letting go of the need to be right all the time. When I was younger, every conversation felt like a competition. Politics, business, even small, everyday matters became battlegrounds where I had to win. I thought being right meant being respected. In truth, it only raised my blood pressure and filled me with resentment. Eventually, after one argument that left me shaking with anger, I decided my peace mattered more than my ego. I began saying, "You might be right," and discovered that most people don't want truth as much as they want validation. By letting go of the need to win, I freed my mind from endless rehearsed arguments and reclaimed my energy. I learned that the man with nothing to prove is often the strongest in the room. Another powerful shift came when I took a hard look at the people around me. I had been loyal to relationships that drained me simply because they were old. Friends who only called when they needed something, relatives who brought constant drama, and acquaintances who thrived on chaos all had a place in my life out of habit, not health. I finally understood that stress is contagious. Being around people who live in constant crisis eventually pulls you into their storm. So I quietly stepped back from those who made my life heavier and louder. My circle became smaller, but it became peaceful, and for the first time in years, I could hear my own thoughts clearly. I also changed how I consumed information. I used to follow the news obsessively, believing it made me a responsible citizen. Instead, it filled my mind with problems I had no power to solve. I was carrying the weight of the world every morning before breakfast. I chose selective ignorance, not to be uninformed, but to be focused. If something didn't directly affect my health, my loved ones, or my ability to help my local community, I stopped giving it my mental energy. I replaced constant headlines with quiet reflection and meaningful reading. Almost overnight, my anxiety eased because my nervous system was no longer flooded with global outrage it was never designed to carry. Learning to say no without long explanations was another life-changing step. For years, I said yes out of guilt, fear of disappointing others, or the need to appear dependable. I would invent excuses instead of simply honoring my limits. Eventually, I realized that my time is my life, and giving away carelessly was giving away pieces of my existence. I began responding with simple, respectful refusals and stopped apologizing for having boundaries. That one change removed a huge amount of daily friction and allowed me to spend my energy on what truly mattered: my health, my quiet interests, and the people I genuinely love. As I aged, I had to make peace with my body's changing abilities. I once fought aging with frustration, angry that I couldn't perform like I did at 40. I pushed myself hard, sometimes to the point of pain, because my pride wouldn't let me slow down. Over time, I shifted from treating my body like a failing machine to treating it like a trusted companion. I traded heavy lifting for long walks and intense strain for stretching and gentle movement. I stopped trying to beat time and started moving with it. When I listened to my body instead of fighting it, my health improved and my relationship with myself softened. I also made it a daily ritual to reconnect with the natural world. After decades of living between walls, screens, and schedules, I began watching the sunset each evening. That simple act grounded me. It reminded me that every day ends, no matter how stressful it seemed, and that the world continues without my constant control. In the vastness of the sky, my worries shrank to their true size. Nature taught me how to exhale. Another heavy burden I released was the obsession with legacy and being remembered. In midlife, I was consumed with the idea of leaving a name, a reputation, something that proved I mattered. Eventually, I saw that chasing legacy was just another form of stress, an attempt to control a future I would never see. I shifted my focus from being remembered later to being present now. My true legacy became the way I treat people, the patience I show, and the peace I carry. Letting go of future fame allowed me to finally live fully in the present. Simplifying my physical environment brought unexpected freedom. After decades of collecting possessions, I realized everything I owned demanded time, attention, and worry. Clutter in my home reflected clutter in my mind. I spent years gradually letting go of what I didn't truly need. With fewer belongings, I felt lighter, clearer, and less tied down. I stopped trying to fill emotional gaps with purchases and discovered that owning less often means experiencing more. I also stopped trying to fix everyone else's problems. As a man, I had been conditioned to be the solver, the rescuer, the one who carries others' burdens. Over time, that habit bent me under weight that wasn't mine to carry. I learned to listen with compassion without immediately offering solutions. Sometimes people need understanding, not repair. By allowing others to handle their own struggles, I preserved my energy and respected their growth. Finally, I made peace with my mortality. For much of my life, I ran from the idea of death by staying busy and distracted. When I finally accepted that my time is limited, a strange calm arrived. Knowing the clock is ticking made me more selective about what deserves my attention. I became more grateful for simple moments, more present in conversations, and less willing to waste time on things that don't matter. Accepting the end made every remaining day more meaningful. Looking back, I see that stress was never a requirement for a worthwhile life. It was a habit I believed I had to maintain to prove my value. Breaking those patterns wasn't easy, and some people preferred the old, overworked version of me because he was easier to use. But the reward was a life I actually wanted to live. I see younger men today with the same tension I once carried, the same restless drive that keeps them from being fully present. They don't have to wait until their late 80s to choose differently. Peace is not weakness. It is wisdom. The greatest achievement man can build is not a fortune or a title, but a mind that is at ease with itself.